COVID-19 pandemic, we are more discussing about virus than any other microorganism. Virus has come to the limelight. If you see in recent past, many disease outbreaks are due to virus. In this context, we are going to discuss about broad spectrum antiviral agents today.
We will cover why the virus is a different target, what is special about this virus, what are the different targets for antiviral drugs, what is broad spectrum antiviral agent, is there any need of broad spectrum antiviral agents, how to develop these broad spectrum antiviral agents, and finally the benefits and risks of these drugs. If you see the history of pandemics, in recent past we have virus pandemics rather than bacterial or any other microorganism outbreaks. Ebola, MERS, SARS, swine flu are few of them. Plague is one of the bacterial pandemics, killing lakhs of people. Pandemic threats posed by bacteria has been substantially diminished in this era of antibiotics. Clinicians, microbiologists, pharmacologists could craft an effective regimen from the existing broad spectrum antibiotics. And can target a large group of bacteria by using broad spectrum antibiotics. But this is not the case in case of antiviral drugs. We don't have any broad spectrum antiviral agent. Some are under investigation. Few drugs have been approved. So this is the reason for which we are discussing broad spectrum antiviral agents. If you see the difference between virus and the structure of bacteria or any other microorganism, any eukaryote like fungus, protozoa, the basic difference is lack of ribosomes in virus, for which it needs a host cell to survive. That's why virus is called an obligatory parasite. Obligate means entirely dependent on. A virus is active only when it is within the host cells. Human beings suffer from many viral diseases, and this virus can enter our body through many routes, including skin, respiratory tract, oral fecal route, milk, placenta, sexual contact, insect vectors like mosquito, animal bites like dogs. Accordingly, they can infect many organs from eye to lungs to GIT to pancreas to sex organs to skin to liver to heart to brain. viral infections are usually self-limiting. We can see in case of viral fever which lasts for 3 to 7 days, and after that it is eliminated by our own immune system. So immune system has a great role in eliminating these virus, but sometimes the long-term virus host interaction can lead to chronic infections. Sometimes they become latent, inert, inactive, and sometimes infection is there but without symptoms. That is called subclinical infection. In acute infections the virus is cleared, but in chronic infections the virus is not cleared. Sometimes it can be latent, and after some period it can become active or recurrent. Based on the host cell, the virus can be named also different types. The host cell can be mammalian cell, insect, plant, bacteria, and in insects the virus is called arbovirus, in plants it is called plant virus, in bacteria it is called bacteriophage. Virus has a genome at the center, which may be DNA or RNA, the nucleic acid, deoxyribonucleic acid or ribonucleic acid. That genome is surrounded by capsid or protein coat consisting of capsomeres. Together they are called nucleocapsid. This may have another covering called envelope in some virus, not in all. So some virus are only nucleocapsid, and some virus have envelope covering the nucleocapsid. So the virus can be of two types, enveloped and non-enveloped. And this envelope is mostly lipoprotein in nature, and it has protein spikes containing glycoproteins which help them to attach to the host cell. And when the virus has the envelope, it has some advantages for the virus. It protects the virus from the host immune system, the enzymes and certain chemicals of the host cell, and because of the receptor molecules that can bind with the host cell, it is easier for the virus to infect the cells. And these envelopes consist of phospholipids and proteins, and these phospholipids they obtain from the host cell itself during formation of the new virion, during the budding or release of the virion from the host cell. This envelope layer the virus can obtain. Virus vary in their structure, and here we can see different structures like helical, polyhedral, spherical, complex. The shape of the capsid actually varies from one type of virus to another, and the capsid can be helical, made up of single type of protein subunits stacked around a central axis to form a helical structure, or it may be polyhedral, or icosahedral, and in these the symmetry gives the virus a specific geometrical pattern, not exactly spherical but similar to a soccer ball. The complex viruses are not purely helical nor icosahedral or polyhedral. They have extra structures such as protein tails or a complex outer wall, and you can see on the right side the body is a polyhedral structure, whereas the tail is a helical structure with some extra structures. And the spherical shape that influenza virus example is an example of enveloped virus. And let us see this influenza virus in detail. This virus has some special structures on its envelope. Hemagglutinin, which helps in attaching the virus to the host cell. Neuraminidase, which enables the virus to be released from the host cell. During boarding it helps. M2 ion channel, which allows the protons to move through the viral envelope and is essential for virus uncoating. So based on the type of genome, the virus can be of two types. If it contains DNA, then it is a DNA virus. If it contains RNA, then it is an RNA virus. No virus contains both DNA and RNA. So we have two types of virus, DNA and RNA virus. These are some examples of DNA viruses and RNA viruses. DNA viruses like pox virus, herpes virus, adenovirus, hepatitis B virus. RNA viruses like influenza virus, measles virus, mumps virus, rubella virus, rabies virus. The difference between DNA and RNA viruses: the replication occurs inside the nucleus in case of DNA virus, because the transcription of DNA to RNA will occur in the nucleus, whereas replication of RNA virus occurs in cytoplasm. The translation process can occur in cytoplasm. Another major difference is the mutation rate. RNA virus have a higher mutation rate as compared to DNA virus, and this is the reason why it is difficult to produce vaccines from RNA virus as compared to DNA virus. Most of the DNA in DNA viruses are double-stranded, but there may be single-stranded DNA virus. Similarly, most of the RNA is single-stranded in RNA virus, but it can also be double-stranded. According to the sense or polarity, RNA virus can be two types: positive sense or positive polarity and negative sense or negative polarity. Positive sense viral RNA are similar to messenger RNA and can be immediately translated by host cell, whereas negative sense viral RNA, the single-strand RNA, are complementary to messenger RNA, so are converted to positive sense single-strand RNA first, means before translation, and then they can undergo the translation process. The single-strand positive sense RNA can be both enveloped as well as non-enveloped, whereas negative sense single-strand RNA are always enveloped, and double-strand RNA are non-enveloped. If we take a purified RNA of positive sense single-strand RNA virus, it can cause infection. Though it is less infectious, but purified RNA of negative sense single-strand RNA virus is not infectious. Similarly, this double-stranded RNA virus contains 1 to 12 different RNA molecules, each coding for one or more viral proteins. In DNA virus, the nucleic acid is usually double-stranded but can also be single-stranded, for example, parvovirus. And when it is single-stranded, the single-stranded DNA is usually expanded to double-stranded in the host cell where the virus has infected. So we have covered 3 types of RNA virus. In addition to that, there is another RNA virus called retrovirus. For example, HIV, human immunodeficiency virus, which is an RNA virus that replicates through DNA polymerase, replicate through an DNA intermediate. So this RNA is, because they have the enzyme reverse transcriptase. So these are RNA virus with reverse transcriptase. The RNA is converted to DNA by reverse transcription process using the viral enzyme reverse transcriptase. Then that DNA can again undergo transcription to RNA. Similarly, in addition to single-strand DNA and double-strand DNA virus, there is another virus which is DNA virus, which replicates through a RNA intermediate, or we can say the DNA virus with reverse transcriptase enzyme. An example is hepatinavirus, which is hepatitis B virus. And in this case, this DNA is converted to RNA, and that RNA through reverse transcription again converts to DNA. So what we discussed, there are 7 types of virus, and this is called Baltimore classification. The life cycle of virus consists of attachment, adsorption, penetration, then the synthesis of the nucleic acid and protein, finally assembly and budding or release of the new virions. So the virus first attaches to the host cell, and this we can explain in a figure. And before that, the host cell actually does the transcription of the DNA to RNA, then it undergoes translation process to produce or synthesize the proteins, and that metabolic machinery is used by DNA virus as well as RNA virus to produce their specific proteins. So first the virus attaches, the number 1 point you can see, first it attaches, adsorbs onto the cell surface, and then penetrates into the cell. There will be oncoating of the virus. The DNA virus release viral DNA into host cell nucleus for transcription followed by translation. RNA virus release viral RNA in the cytoplasm for translation process. So using host cell ribosome, protein synthesis occurs. There will be synthesis of capsid proteins, synthesis of the glycoproteins. Post-translational processing of enveloped glycoproteins occur in the Golgi apparatus. Then the viral genome, the capsid proteins, the glycoproteins all assemble and release, and during release you can see in this figure, this is an example of RNA virus. You can see when it enters, only the nucleocapsid enters the host cell, and then there will be use of the metabolic machinery of the host cell to produce more nucleocapsids. And during its release, there is formation of a bud. So this release process is called budding. And during that budding, you can see the new virion takes the phospholipids from the host cell membrane, and you can see the yellow colored covering surrounding the nucleocapsid in the new virus, that is totally exclusively given by the host cell, and that surrounds a layer of glycoproteins. In this way, the new virions are produced. So in this figure, we have a single strand RNA negative sense is there, and as we have discussed, this single strand negative sense RNA has to be converted to single strand RNA with positive sense. Then it can go for viral replication or protein synthesis. Similarly, the double strand RNA is converted to single strand RNA positive sense, and positive sense single strand RNA can directly undergo translation process. And the third one, the retrovirus, which is RNA virus. In this case, the RNA is converted to viral DNA by reverse transcriptase, and that viral DNA then integrates with the host cell DNA to produce provirus, and that provirus undergoes transcription and translation process. So now we have the summary of viral replication, and we have discussed all the single strand, all the RNA viruses, single strand positive sense, single strand negative sense, single strand RNA with reverse transcriptase, and double strand RNA virus. Similarly, the double strand DNA virus also undergoes transcription using host cell or viral RNA polymerase, that is DNA dependent RNA polymerase, to produce mRNA. And if it is DNA virus with single strand DNA, then the host cell DNA polymerase converts it to double strand DNA first, then it will undergo transcription process. And those virus those DNA virus with reverse transcriptase enzyme, for example hepatitis B, the double strand DNA is converted to your RNA, that is called a pre-genomic RNA. Then that RNA using the reverse transcriptase enzyme undergoes reverse transcription to produce genomic DNA, and this is the difference in this DNA virus. Let us take a few examples. First, the herpes virus, which is a DNA virus. Here the virus after uncoating releases the DNA, which undergoes transcription to mRNA, and using DNA polymerase more viral DNA is also produced, and drugs like acyclovir, which is a prodrug and converted to acyclovir triphosphate, inhibits the enzyme DNA polymerase. And let us take the example of hepatitis B virus, which is a DNA virus with reverse transcriptase enzyme. And here you can see on the right side below, there will be formation of pre-genomic RNA from covalently closed circular viral DNA, and that pre-genomic RNA by reverse transcriptase enzyme, which is the viral enzyme, is converted to DNA, and then it can undergo assembly. If you take the example of one RNA virus, here we take the influenza virus. So here the virus after uncoating releases the RNA, and why I have taken this example here, because its surface contains many proteins like hemagglutinin, neuraminidase, M2 protein. The functions are already discussed previously. And here the drugs like amantadine disables M2 protein, preventing viral uncoating, and hence it can inhibit the replication. And drugs like oseltamivir, zanamivir inhibits neuraminidase and inhibits the boarding or release of the virions, and they also promote clumping of those virions. Now let us take one RNA virus with reverse transcriptase, and this is HIV. So this HIV attacks the T lymphocytes, and these T lymphocytes have the CD4 receptor on their surface, and the HIV on its envelope has glycoproteins like GP41, GP120, and there are some chemokine co-receptors like CCR5, CXCR4 on the surface of the T lymphocytes, the host cell, and through these co-receptors and interaction of CD4 and glycoprotein, the HIV enters and fuse with the host cell and enters, and there will be uncoating, release of the viral genome, and step 3 you can see where the viral RNA is converted to viral DNA by the enzyme reverse transcriptase. Then that viral DNA enters into the nucleus, where in step 4 it integrates with the host DNA by the enzyme integrase. Then that integrated DNA is called provirus, which undergoes transcription and translation, and after translation there will be production of the proteins which are broken by the enzyme protease to produce structural proteins, and finally all of them will be assembled, and there will be boarding or release of the virus. So many anti-HIV drugs act at step 1. We can use CCR5 inhibitor like maraviroc. At step 2 we can use N3 or fusion inhibitor like enfuvirtide. Then in step 3 we can use reverse transcriptase inhibitors, which are actually the analogues of nucleosides or nucleotides. As you know, nucleoside is a combination of base and sugar, and nucleotide is a combination of base, sugar and phosphate. So nucleoside analogues like zidovudine, stavudine, and nucleotide analogues like tenofovir can be used as a reverse transcriptase inhibitor. There can also be non-nucleoside reverse transcriptase inhibitors like efavirenz, nevirapine. Then at step 4 we can use integrase inhibitors like raltegravir, and at step 5 we can use protease inhibitors like indinavir, saquinavir. So all these antiviral drugs, they act synergistically with the immune system, and this immune system has a great role in eliminating the virus. If the patient is immunocompetent, and then it is easy to eliminate the virus, and if the patient is immunocompromised, then it will be difficult for the patient to eliminate the virus. So a healthy immune system works synergistically with the antiviral drugs to eliminate or suppress the viral activity. Both innate and adaptive immunity have a role in virus elimination, and in innate immunity or natural immunity, the interferons and natural killer cells have a role, and in adaptive immunity or specific immunity, both humoral immunity as well as cell-mediated immunity are there. In humoral immunity, our body produces antibodies against a specific virus, and those antibodies can neutralize the virus and protect against the infection. And in cell-mediated immunity, the T lymphocytes, cytotoxic T lymphocytes are activated, and those cytotoxic T lymphocytes have CD8 receptors on them, and when they recognize the host cell infected with the virus, they kill those infected cells, and in this way they eradicate the infection. Then we have just discussed the replication part. Then another major problem with virus is mutation, and mutation can be during direct transmission, or during genetic reassortment, or due to re-emergence of circulating virus. And when a virus enters a new or novel host, then there can be mutation like in direct transmission, and sometimes when a viral disease is re-emerging, that means it is reappearing after a significant decline, then also there can be mutations, and that can cause formation of a new strain and of virus. And we can see here in this example, these pigs can serve as a mixing vessel for flu viruses, and a potential source for a human pandemic strain. And a new viral strain can be obtained. You can see when two other strains, human flu virus and avian flu virus, co-infect the host. Here the host is your pig, and this process is called reassortment. So reassortment is the process in which two different viral strains co-infect a host cell. And in below we have the other example where mutation occurs during transmission of avian flu virus to a novel susceptible host like human beings, and human beings acts here as the mixing vessel. And there are several examples of reassortment in the history, and in 1957 and in 1968 there were new strains of influenza due to reassortment. If you come to present corona pandemic, there are 7 known coronavirus that can infect humans. Again, this coronavirus has 2 strains. The L strain, which is the aggressive form and mutated from the older strain S strain, and the aggressive L strain affects around 70% of the patients, whereas the less aggressive S strain affects around 30% of people. Even due to mutation, there are different variants of coronavirus in different places also. So the viral infections has become the biggest pandemic threat, and the reason, as we explained, first we have explained that this virus is an obligatory parasite, so it is and the antiviral drugs are equally toxic to the host cell. Second, the high replication rate, and the peculiarity about this is antiviral drugs are effective against the virus when it is replicating. So these antiviral drugs are mainly virustatic, they cannot be virucidal, so they can only inhibit the growth, and they are not effective against the latent virus. And third, we have discussed there is rapid mutation which makes the drugs ineffective and resistant, and that's why we need broad spectrum antiviral agents which were lacking. If you go through the evolution of antiviral drug discovery, which started from 1960s, we find this one virus, one antiviral drug paradigm. Currently available antiviral drugs are highly targeted against a specific virus, or in some cases members of a viral family. For example, you can see here acyclovir is effective against the herpes family of viruses like herpes simplex virus 1, 2, varicella zoster virus. Amantadine is effective against influenza A only, enfuvirtide is effective against HIV-1 only, not against HIV-2. So to counter that and looking at the importance of viral infections causing or having the potential to cause pandemic, so a counterpoint is one drug multiple viruses paradigm, and from this concept of broad spectrum antiviral agents comes, and which can inhibit wide range of viruses. And this paradigm is based on the observation that different viruses utilize similar pathway or similar host factors to replicate inside a cell, and using that concept we can have broad spectrum antiviral agents. Although the concept of broad spectrum antiviral agents has been around for almost 50 years, the field received a new impetus with recent outbreaks of many viruses like Ebola, Zika, dengue, influenza, corona, etc. And here we can see this favipiravir, which is effective against influenza. Its primary use was against influenza, and later it is found that it is effective against Ebola, Lassa fever virus. So these drugs, favipiravir, remdesivir, lopinavir, ritonavir combination, pleconaril, all are showing broad spectrum activity against the RNA virus. Similarly, drugs like cidofovir, ganciclovir, valganciclovir, idoxuridine, trifluridine, also broad spectrum activity against DNA virus. So these are basically antiviral drugs which are found to have increased spectrum of activity against more virus. Similarly, there are some other antiviral drugs like tenofovir, foscarnet, adafovir, entecavir, and the prodrug of brimcidofovir, ribavirin. They show broad spectrum activity against both DNA as well as RNA virus. You can see cidofovir has shown broad spectrum activity against only DNA virus, whereas the brimcidofovir is showing a broad spectrum activity against both DNA as well as RNA virus. In addition to the antiviral drugs, there are some other drugs which are whose primary use was not antiviral, they were used for some other purpose, maybe anti-malarial, maybe antibacterial, anti-protozoal, like anti-amoebic, anthelmintic, anti-parasitic, and these drugs, when studied against the virus, are found to be effective against the virus and not against one for multiple viruses. So drugs like nitazoxanide, aminoglycoside antibiotics, salinomycin, flavopiridol, imetin, the anti-amoebic drug, enoxacin, the fluoroquinolone, amodiaquine, niclosamide, all these are showing efficacy against multiple viruses. So the new drug discovery process for broad spectrum antiviral agents consists of testing the efficacy and toxicity of these agents in vitro using cell culture, cell lines, followed by testing in animal models, followed by the testing in human beings, called clinical trials. There are obstacles for development of broad spectrum antiviral agents, which already we have discussed, because there are differences between RNA and DNA virus, and again they have single or double strand genomic structure. Again, the replication can be in cytoplasm or in nucleus, and the virus heavily rely on the host proteins, and even the virally encoded proteins across viral families differ vastly, and during the development process sufficient culture systems are also lacking. So all these obstacles are there. So what to do? We need to identify the targets common to distinct viral families that are genetically similar. Then we can go for systematically assessing for broad spectrum antiviral activity, and that activity we can study in a new drug entity which may be obtained from a plant source or from synthetic source, or we can repurpose the existing antiviral drugs or other drugs which we just discussed. All those examples are mostly the examples of repurposed drugs. Primary use was some 1 or 2 uses, and then they were tested for their broad spectrum activity against multiple viruses. So here we can see this example here. The common targets for multiple viruses are identified, and some plant drugs, the phytochemicals which have the potential to inhibit those common targets, are shown here. And you can see on the right side, you can see the example, the viral epitases, which is a common target for your HIV and hepatitis virus C and herpes simplex virus 2. So drugs can be used which can target that common target of multiple viruses. So as compared to the new drug entities, the repurposing has many advantages, because these drugs are already tested. Some of them are marketed or launched for some purpose, and even if some drugs are failed to show activity against a certain virus, then also we can use them, because the safety part, the pharmacokinetics, the synthesis, manufacturing process, all these preclinical and early clinical, maybe phase 1, phase 2, have already passed, when they have passed all these, so there is no need to repeat them. So it reduces the timeline and it reduces the cost of development, and it increases the probability of success to market as compared to a new drug entity. There are almost 120 drugs under trial in different phases of clinical trial, and many of which we have just discussed in earlier slides. About 21 drugs have been FDA approved for different uses, and some of them are favipiravir, cidofovir, ribavirin, pleconazil, valsiclovir, etc. So this is the drugvirus.info website, which shows a list of all these 120 drugs which are being tested as broad spectrum antiviral agents. There are also testing of use of broad spectrum antiviral agent combinations to have more spectrum of activity, and a combination of nitazoxanide, favipiravir and niclosamide can cover viruses belonging to 11 families. The broad spectrum antiviral agents against SARS-CoV-2 and this COVID-19 virus are many, including these antiviral drugs like remdesivir, unifinavir, the combination of lopinavir and ritonavir. In addition to that, there are antibiotics like teicoplanin, oritavancin, dalbavancin, monacin, anti-emetic agents like imetin, anti-malarial agents like chloroquine, hydroxychloroquine are being tested against COVID-19. And this is again the drugvirus.info website showing the list of drugs which are tested against all these viruses listed. So there are many advantages of using broad spectrum antiviral agents, and the first one is they are effective against multiple virus and genotypes, and so they decrease the morbidity and mortality from viral and other diseases. They maximize the number of healthy years, improve the quality of life of patients, and decrease the cost of patient care. So in addition to that, they can also shorten the time and resources needed for development of virus-specific drugs and vaccines, and these agents will be very essential when quick diagnosis is not available, and they can control effectively the emerging and novel virus as well as the re-emerging virus also. And since they have broad spectrum, they can be higher barrier to resistance, and hence they can reduce the treatment complexity. So the benefits are there, but risks is also there, as we have discussed. Since we are using drugs with broad spectrum antiviral activity, they can increase the cellular toxicities, and when they block a common target, there may be systemic complementation of our immune system to that block target, so there can be risk of immune deregulation. And again, since they are using a common target of multiple virus, so there can be decreased target specificity. So balance needed between the benefits and risks. So these drugs should have the broad spectrum antiviral activity, but not at the cost of toxicity. They should have less toxicity. So the key points are The broad-spectrum antiviral agents may play a pivotal role in the battle against the emerging and re-emerging viral diseases, but we need a balance between the broad-spectrum activity and the toxicity to the host. And there can be different strategies to get the broad-spectrum activity from antiviral agents or other agents, and we can use mainly those nucleoside or nucleotide analogues, because most of the broad-spectrum antiviral agents are analogues of nucleosides or nucleotides, so we can repurpose them. And we can also repurpose those drugs which are inhibiting the enzymes of virus, so that they can be less toxic, for example protease inhibitor. And we can use targeted delivery, we can use also immunomodulation, monoclonal antibodies to increase the spectrum of activities. So these are the references.